ready to go when we have 300 plus initial attack fires that are happening while we're fighting 2 or 3 major fires at the same time. And so that's what's happening. The Kincaid fire is the largest and most damaging fire that we have currently that we're fighting. Healdsburg and Windsor are very much still in harm's way. But our crews yesterday were able to maintain fire lines, hold the major part of the fire out of the depths of the community in both cases, and are working now to get perimeter control so that we can keep the fire from going to the west side of 101 and release evacuation orders as soon as possible, get people back home. We're also working within the incident to ensure that PG&E has all of the possible access that they need to get the power on, even within the fire area, immediately, as soon as it is safe to do so. So these are the things that we're able to do with this partnership that is happening here at the SOC. What we need to also be aware of is that we're nowhere near done with this. We are going to need to have widespread statewide rain before this is over. And so we're poised to continue this. Thankfully, I've talked with you in the past about the firefighters being worn down. Those scars are still there. And these kind of days bring that feeling back. But we've had enough time this year to be able to recharge, sharpen our tools, be ready for what's happening now, and we are fully capable and ready to respond to all of the state's fire emergencies, plus going through this part of the season. So I want you to feel very confident that the fire service system and the emergency response system is ready for California's emergencies going into the rest of this fire season. And very much thankfully to extending our peak staffing and our 4th firefighter on much of our engines that was added as surge capacity during the middle of season this year by Governor Newsom. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chief. And speaking of response, and I think about 17, 18 minutes, we will have a new website up, culturally competent website available, Spanish, not just English, called response.ca.gov, response.ca.gov. That will be a aggregated site for information about current weather conditions. It will have a number of buttons that will be able to attach to small business loans, assistance, support. We'll talk about the details of some of these emergency declarations and allow people in a very friendly customer engagement to be able to access resources in one single site, as opposed to trying to figure out the labyrinth that is government bureaucracy. And so response.ca.gov, we encourage people to go to that site. I also want to just make one final point, and that is I could not be more pleased with the local elected officials and their extraordinary response to this moment, both Assembly and Senate leaders, but also city council members and mayors, boards of supervisors. It's just wonderful to row in the same direction. And we were very pleased to get $75 million out this last week, 26 million to counties, 10 specifically to cities, to provide discretionary grants that they can provide real resources in real time. And that's just, again, part of the framework of collaboration that is relatively novel in this state, but I think important to highlight as well. With that, we're happy to answer any questions, and you can ask not just ourselves, but talk to Maribel and our Health and Human Service Director as well, if you wish. But any questions?
Governor, you said in an interview over the weekend that you wanted to see Warren Buffett make an offer to PG&E. Why would he want to, take over a company like that you have repeatedly said is in so much turmoil? And
I want to see as many people bidding. What I said, and very specifically said, I want as many people bidding for the assets of Pacific Gas and Electric as possible. I couldn't be more clear, including standing right here on 2 separate occasions, not only in my public comments, but on that board right there, put out a report in detail saying that includes municipalization. and that was in our report. It was also in my public comments. We are working with the City and County of San Francisco. I've been talking to Mayor Sam Liccardo. We continue to look for bidders, large and small, all across this country, and he's among many that is in this business. And I just hope more people make a bid for the assets so we have a competitive process moving up into June 30th of next year when we have set the goal and date and mandate for PG&E to get out of bankruptcy.
But given the situation, given their falling stock price, what argument or what case could you make to someone to even?
I just want as many people to look at purchasing the assets. That's a decision for them. I think you're chasing a headline that wasn't necessarily contextualized. We said we want as many bidders. Someone asked, would they be among them? I said, absolutely. I want as many people making a case and bidding for these assets. But I imagine that's the same argument you'd have to ask the people of City and County of San Francisco. The same argument you'd have to ask Sam Liccardo. Same argument you'd have to make to Elliott and the hedge fund that is trying to make a bid, or to those that are trying to seek equity through the shareholders that currently exist in the current board at PG&E. That's a difficult process, but we set up a framework to help aid in them getting out of bankruptcy. That is a substantive answer to your question of what are the procedures and protocols that we put in place that we think not only will help with that process and secure potential bids for the assets, but also help secure some stabilization and ability to get bond ratings that will allow access to capital for the other two IOUs in Southern California, SDGE and Edison in LA. So this is a multifaceted challenge. It's not exclusive to PG&E, but we want more people in this space, more people bidding.
I have a couple questions about compensation, but I want to follow up. You brought up municipalization. Is there anything that you can do at the state level to encourage municipalization? Anything you can do to drive down the price that localities would have to pay to buy out their section of the grid?
It's all be determined. We're working in collaboration with the City and County of San Francisco. There were specific procedures and protocols that they reached out to request and support from us. They did that formally and informally, did that in writing, did that verbally and orally, and we responded in a very supportive manner. So the answer is yes, and specifically we have.
That you can do. Okay, so I want to follow up on your compensation point that you continue to hammer on PG&E, saying they need to make people, at least if not whole, compensate them in some fashion for these outages. I've had people tell me, $100 isn't going to pay for a fridge full of food. I've had business owners say I've lost thousands. $250 credit on my bill is like paltry, and
That's correct.
And yet PG&E has balked at this idea at every turn, and now we're looking at 3 different shutoffs. Is there anything you can do to compel them to actually?
We're working with the PUC to do just that. We're looking at the fixed charges on utility bills as one form of potential relief and allowing credits on that. And we're looking at our legal authority in this space, which is more challenging. But we're also looking at our moral authority and doing what we can to assess these costs. Past practices don't necessarily predict the future, but they can instruct our approach to try to advance a different kind of outcome in future. But I'm not naive about this. This is what we think they should do, and the Public Utilities Commission will adjudicate what they legally can do.
So you're not sure they can do it at this point?
I am sure that in the past, based upon not just PG&E, and let's excuse PG&E, the power shutoffs are more common in Southern California than they are in Northern California. They've been more common since 2007, and San Diego Gas and Electric, they do not reimburse for power shutoffs. That's been an industry practice. So that is a past practice from one of the IOUs. PG&E has not been in this position before. We would like them to consider reimbursements, and we're going to be very forceful in advancing that.
Real quick, how about reimbursing the state? We're throwing all kinds of state resources.
We are assessing all of those costs and have been very, very vocal about that. And I can assure you, we have been very detailed and copious in collecting those costs.
I have a question for President Batcher, actually. If you don't
Thanks.
mind. So PG&E in the PUC's investigation, like if the bankruptcy proceeding, of course, was going on, PG&E about a week or 2 ago, they asked for all of the investigations against PG&E to be resolved, including cost of capital, including the safety investigation, 2017 fires, the gas records investigation, basically every single thing happening at the PUC. Do you support all of those things being resolved by June 30th as kind of part and parcel with the bankruptcy plan being approved? Can you as well by then?
I can't speak specifically to the proceedings. However, we do, as the governor has well described, we are going to get to June 30th with a bankruptcy completed. So I can't speak to the proceeding underway. I'm not allowed to do that, but I understand the question. Thank you.
It's a new day at the Public Utilities Commission, and I can assure you we have the right chair to advance our efforts.
So, two questions. One about the June 30th date. Is there any risk that having this hard and fast date will limit the possibilities for creative solutions on what to do with PG&E and how to handle it and whether to break it up and municipalization and all this stuff? Might that take longer than you have?
Well, we need to move. End of tyranny or tyranny without end. We need a date. We need specific goals. We need to be transparent, and we need to measure our progress. And I think the sense of deep urgency that people are feeling right now only underscores the importance of meeting that moment. We laid out detailed pathway, what that looks like. And as you recall, that includes commitments to advancing our clean energy goals. It includes commitments to make sure we do our best to hold harmless the community choice aggregators and existing contracts on clean energy. It made commitments to advance our efforts to get closure on the settlements related to the culpability that has been established by PG&E, related to the Camp Fire in particular, but other fires that are being adjudicated in real time. All of those things must occur. The utilities broadly were supportive of that timeline, despite the pressures clearly that places on them. And what has occurred in the last few weeks, just to me, underscores the importance of meeting that deadline.
Okay, so you don't sound flexible on that.
Look, we're going to do what we have to do, but we're going to be look, the law is the law. That's what specifically the date that is in there, June 30th, 2020, in order to access a series of valves that would help them help themselves. It is in absolutely their interest to create the conditions, and they've got 9 months to do so, to advance those settlements and to continue the work that they need to do to invest in public safety and reliability in the process.
So as a follow-up, you said it's a new day at the PUC. So are the problems we're seeing right now, I mean, is the PUC to blame? Have they not done enough to hold the utilities?
Well, I think there's a long list of finger pointing. I've been very clear and precise in some of my criticism, but I've also extended that to oversight. I got here 9 months ago, not 19 years ago, not even 9 years ago. We own this. I own my decision to appoint 2 members of the PUC. I'm pleased with both appointments. We have a new chair, and she is tough-minded, resolved, and has got an incredible track record. And she's going to hold them accountable. I have all the confidence in the world. I won't speak to the past of the Public Utilities Commission, except to say we didn't meet previous 2 decades. And so that's on everybody. And Mother Nature, forgive me, has also joined the conversation in a way where she was not as engaged in the past. And as you know, she bats last, she bats 1,000. She's chemistry, physics, and biology. And she has been ferocious in 5-year drought, historic rain year, and has created and exacerbated these conditions. This is the reality. We own it. We need to fix it.
Governor Newsom, I also wanted to ask about the Paradise area lawmakers' proposal this morning. This hasn't been codified, of course, into like a bill, but I wanted to ask about their proposal to basically put a pause on the RPS and transfer that, like utility spending in that area towards fire efforts.
Well, we'll take a look at it when we learn more about it. But the spirit of a hyper laser-like focus on public safety, I absolutely embrace. And that's the kind of accountability that we look forward to at the Public Utilities Commission, and a prioritization of public safety improvements. And so that spirit I embrace, but I don't know the details of what they're proposing. Forgive me.
I know you've mentioned repeatedly over the last few weeks AB 1054 and leaving things up, to the bankruptcy proceedings to reshape PG&E, but are there other concrete things that you are either looking for from the legislature or looking to propose moving forward to, get in sooner on, or even through the bankruptcy process, I guess, to reshape and change PG&E? And is there any need for a emergency session or special session to do any of that?
I want to fulfill all the commitments we made that are in process, and they're significant. I'll repeat them. You opened it up. I'm going to repeat them. The utilities have to invest $5 billion in public safety improvements. The utilities have to add a member of their board of directors that's focused on public safety. Their compensation, not only for the executives, their management is now tied to public safety. The PUC has to build a team, anywhere from 35 to 40 individuals. They've already hired the director that would focus exclusively on wildfire mitigation planning. It's a new division of safety under the PUC. That has to be done by January 1st. There's an advisory committee that complements that effort that will bring in the kind of resources and resourcefulness that is needed at this moment to look at new technologies and looking at new and best and novel practices on public safety and modernizing the grid, hardening the grid, and making it more reliable and safer. We will hold ourselves to all of those provisions, hold ourselves to account. But the thing I want to see with earnest and intensity right now is what is being advanced independently by the PUC chair and her colleagues, and that is a major investigation specifically into PSPS. We don't need to wait for anyone to tell us to do that. That is underway. That process is unfolding in real time. It already was opened up, and now it is being advanced in earnest. So that's where we are. And to the extent more is needed, we will continue to pursue that. But I will say we put $1 billion in the budget to focus on pre-positioning of assets, to focus on fire mitigation, vegetation management, forest management, new assets and procurement for AI and LiDAR and radar technologies, prescriptive technologies, analytic technologies. We need to invest those dollars in real time. So all of this is underway. All of this was anticipated, including the money we put in the budget early part of the year, $50 million of grants for emergency planning at the local level, the $75 million that we put in anticipation of PSPS that now is just being distributed, and the 911 investments that we put in the budget that need to invest. So it's about implementation. It's not always about the novel. It's about implementing the commitments we've made with assurance that we're going to be accountable to hitting on all of those goals. And I will remind you of your own reporting. And I'll remind you that those reports are online, and we tag them on every single press release. And I would encourage you to open the links and look through the detailed prescriptive plan that we set out to not only meet this moment, but to work through this moment so we don't have to continue to be at this moment into the future.
Governor, I just had a quick clarifying question about this major investigation looking to PSPS. So is that an extension of the existing PUC rulemaking?
Let's get Maribel back up here. Yeah.
Or is it a separate one?
It will be included in an open proceeding that's already underway.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Governor, another thing that 1054 did was allow utilities to earn a certificate that would sort of ease their liability for starting wildfires if they can demonstrate to the PUC that they're a safe operator. My understanding is PG&E already has its first certificate under 1054. How do you square that with the fact we've got CAL FIRE tape around one of their towers right now for this Kincaid fire?
Well, they have annual certification, safety certification that is required, and PUC can talk to that process, but we're putting this advisory committee up. We're putting the new safety division up. All of that happens in January, and that will create a protocol, a completely different protocol than the one that exists today. I don't know, Maribel, you want to?
Well, there also our safety and enforcement division in collaboration with CAL FIRE. We investigate incidences. And that investigation, our investigators are already out on the lines looking at those.
I understand. To some people, they're going to see that we've got a state seal of approval that you're one of the safe operators, and right now they're being looked at as the cause of this fire.
Yeah, well, we're doubling down on this, and you can look to the specifics of our legislation and what's going in place in January, and it is a completely new day. Anybody else?
So is there anything you feel the state can do for fire safety that's not doing now?
I mean, there's always more we can do. I mean, look, it took decades to get here. Decades of forest mismanagement, suppression strategies that actually have exacerbated conditions in some of our forests, lack of federal investment in 57% of the land that's under federal jurisdiction, a federal government that's cutting their forestry budget. It has been over the last few years as they moralize about California's lack of leadership in this space. We put an historic amount of money in the space, but that's just a down payment. It will take years and years to kind of do the work we need to do to prepare and make sure we're more resilient. But the biggest and most stubborn reality is these utilities. And they have to modernize their equipment, and we've got to get this thing through bankruptcy and come out the other side as completely reimagined operation that's more resilient and more safety focused. And I think we've got the protocols and procedures in place to do that, and now we just have to implement. But again, it's not a video game. It's not a computer program. It's life. It's organic. And things, you know, you're going to be honest with people as opposed to mislead people. Things have to sequentially take shape. And it's not a linear life. And we will respond in real time, and we will adjust in real time. We'll deal with changing conditions. But I hope you can objectively look at the last 9 months. And there's not a week that's gone by. Quite literally, I would challenge you, not a week that's gone by where there hasn't been a sequential announcement committing, resolving to address this issue head on, to anticipate the moment, to lean into the moment, to hold folks to account that we never have had before. I could be held to account for the last 9 months, and I assure you, if I'm privileged to be here for a full-year term, a 4-year term, you're going to see a hell of a lot more being done. You're going to see much more accountability, and if I don't see real things take shape, we're going to get new folks in that can actually do that job. But I think we've got the right team, we've got the right path and plan, and now we've got to execute, and that's on us.
Changing, like, where homes could be built, is that?
Well, you can't get rid of 4.5 million homes. I want to remind folks of this. There are 4.5 million homes that already have been built in the WUI. 11 million Californians live in these, so we can moralize saying, what the hell did you think when you built that, grandma built that home 100 years ago? What was she thinking? She didn't anticipate climate change. She didn't anticipate that our forest management may have changed. We've got to just protect these folks. I think there's a, you know, and by the way, as you know, because you were here, you remember the details, I hope. I encourage you to take a look at the links, look at our plan. We were explicit about moving forward and including in general plans consideration around issues of land use in and around the WUI as it relates to new construction and new planning into the future. There's a whole section of our report, including my own comments that were made here at this podium, about smarter land use planning and local decision making as it relates to addressing the new realities of climate change and the vulnerabilities in and around these forested areas. And so that is something else that we've been aggressive about and we're proactive about, and that also needs to be considered as well. And as you may recall, we had a summit. Not everybody joined us, but we had a wonderful summit in June sharing these best practices with local leaders all up and down the state. We held it at the Sheraton in Sacramento. Was very proud of that summit. It was the first time the state had ever convened experts in this space, including land use. And we had a number of sessions sharing best practices in this space as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Your thoughts on your name and Dre Davis's name,
Yeah.
making it into some.
Yeah, that's, I'll leave that to you guys. I appreciate everybody. Thank you.